Welcome back to another episode of Gora the Explorer. This is episode number 4, and I'm Nathan Johnson. Nathan Johnson, that's who I am. London's best personal trainer in 2017, and helped over 1,000 South Asian people get in shape and stay in shape forever. And this is going to be talking about why Indians, South Asians, hate bland food. Now, bland food is one of those areas of where it can really make or break a diet, no matter who you are, Caucasian, black or kind of Hispanic. We all like particular preferences, and especially within the Indian and the South Asian community, where food has always been quite rich in flavor, rich in taste, and there's always been kind of a hype around it in terms of their enjoyment emotionally, physically, and food in general is the way that we want to do it. It always creates this element of when you try and do something different, there is a contrast. Now, there's an erring degree of why bland food has become a synonymous with a diet. Normally, it's to do with the fact that dieting is around people who are nutritionists or dietitians or bodybuilders, and their goal is performance. Their goal is to be unemotional around food so they continue to do and be more consistent. Quite transparently, the less emotional you are around food, the more you think as food as fuel and not as this emotional experience, you'll have a lot more consistency and you'll have a lot more easier to stay on track in harder times when you're not looking for that tense taste sensation with your food. But we know within the Indian and South Asian community that food is not just about performance or it's a fuel source, it is life and it is a variable that takes into consideration. And you need to take that into consideration when you are starting a diet. However, the reason why dieting became synonymous is because when you got plans before, when you got nutrition plans, dietitian plans, you got them from people who didn't encourage you to utilize sauces, seasonings, variations, the usual foods that you have, either the curries, the gravies, because in their world, in a dietitian's world or a PT's world, they are so hard to manage. They are so the element of harder to track and harder to get results. So people who think about dieting as a performance goal, as a fat loss goal, this is what you need to do. They will try and take out as many variables like sauces, seasonings, ghees, oils, so that you can then stay on track with the amount of food that you eat. It's called low calorie, high volume. It's where you make the most out of your calories to chew them, eat them, and feel satiated. And therefore, they, as bodybuilders, they, as dietitians, will encourage you to eat food as opposed to spend calories on sauces, seasonings, and variations, which means that bodybuilders, dietitians will favor a meal tasting less favorable for the nutritional benefit that it gets. And that's awesome. Like, getting more benefits from your meals is fucking great. But when you're looking at what keeps people on diets, what the Indian community, South Asian community need is they're accustomed to having a particular taste, sensation, flavor, or spice with a meal. Because, when I was in India 3 months ago now for a wedding, I was sitting down at a temple with a lady who was showing me how to pair particular foods, the taste, the sweet, the crunch, the sogginess, the bitterness, and how to navigate all these together. And it just showed me that food was more than just a rice on a plate with this pickle, with this curry, with this sauce, with this seasoning. And it was more about actually how the combinations come together to create a particular taste. And if you're accommodating and accustomed to that particular degree, it's going to be hard to then go to something that is less flavor, less taste sensation, less crunch, less nicety. And then you're going to be thinking, why am I doing this? If you're getting enjoyment from food and you take that away, you have less to be enjoyable about. And most people, it doesn't matter your culture, your traditions, or your community, is that when we take a piece of our enjoyment away on a day-to-day basis, we end up being less satisfied, less happy around our days. If someone took away my latte in the morning, if someone took away my meal out with my missus at the weekend, if someone took out a roast dinner for me or a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, I would be less happy about my day. And that's how you must feel. That's how the community must feel when they go on diets that end up being quote unquote bland. So I want to kind of dispel that myth of like what you can do about it. Firstly, if you're getting a program from a bodybuilder or a dietitian where it doesn't have seasoning sauces or how to incorporate the traditional foods or even any of the foods that matter. If you want to have Mexican dish fajitas and these other dishes, you should be able to. If you want to know how to have a sweet and savory or a crunchy bite of something, you should be able to. And we teach people at autonomy how you can have these things and still get an amazing shape, even though they might not be the most beneficial nutritionally. But reality is I know if you're watching this video or listening to this audio, you struggle with consistency. You struggle with being on a diet for a long period because you've chased the element of accountability. You chase the element of strictness, can the accountability of fast results because someone has taught you to do that. But it's not absolutely true. So the best way that you can do this is in multiple facets. In the short term, you want to be able to understand how to get the most out of your seasoning sauces and flavors to get the most out of it without ruining your calories. Like that's obviously really, really important to not ruin the thing that you're trying to do from a workout fat loss perspective. So the easiest way to do that is utilizing herbs and spices. Now, herbs and spices without the marination of the yogurt or the ghee or the oils can become something that is really low calorie. Now, when you get it from a packet perspective versus adding the garam masala, the turmeric, the curcumin, the garlic, the onions, all of them by yourself, you do add more calories because of those seasoning packets end up being for your taste, for the pleasure, and they end up adding additional calories into those. So even some of the packet seasoning that you might think are quote unquote healthy are still 100 to 200 calories. Whereas if you add the seasonings yourself, like a tablespoon of yogurt, add that, marinate it with garam masala, turmeric, curcumin, garlic cloves or garlic paste and onions, you're going to be able to make this variation yourself, which then allows you to put it over your meat, over your protein source, or make a gravy out of it. And that will then be the lowest calorie variation that you can then put with your stock protein source. If that's tofu, if that's chicken, if that's chicken thighs, turkey, that's a soy chunks, for example, tofu, you can put them all with that particular gravy and then serve that up as a dish. So you get the spicy, you get the tastiness, you get the variations that you enjoy. And everyone has those variations that you enjoy. When I was at university, I used to make this one particular sauce that could make 10 different flavors. So you start with like a chopped tomatoes, then you'd add in the onions and garlic. And then if I was going for more of an Italian type of vibe, I would add in all the cilantros and all of the herbs and basils and this thyme and that type of stuff to get more of a spaghetti bolognese feel. But then if I wanted to go for the curry vibes, I'd go with my chopped tomatoes, my onions, my garlic, and then I'd go garam masala, I'd go chili powder, go turmeric, garlic. I think I had a double garlic. And then you can add in some textures around that too. So you have this base sauce that you utilize with all of your meals to get the flavor that you want. Because most people don't want lots and lots of different variations. They just want to have what they're used to. They want to have what they like. And you can have those things to make a food not taste bland. Now, most people make the mistake. They say things like, oh, chicken breast is bland. Well, any food is bland if you don't flavor it. Turkey, tofu, name a protein source. Bread's bland if you don't add seasoning to it, or you don't get a baguette with the sun-dried tomatoes in with the olives. They all have to get additives to it to make it a meal, not just an ingredient. So you might be thinking, oh, this food is bland. Well, it is how you make it. It is how you input your ingredients to it. So I would definitely say that no food is bland. Actually, every food is bland until you make out of it what you need. So you can add those seasonings to it. Now, the differences between herbs and spices and something like a sauce. So most Indians will absolutely kill me, but my mum and dad grew me up on Lloyd Grossman. Lloyd Grossman jars, 350, 400 calories of a jar. You'd fry whatever protein sauce you were having in a wok, and then you'd add the jar of sauce to get whatever sauce. It was super easy, and that was really it. So you'd make a curry one night, you'd make a jar of tomato spaghetti bolognese the night afterwards, you'd use a fajita dish the day after, honey and mustard the day after, and we would use jars of sauces to create different flavors with our protein sauces. So every single week we'd have Monday, and it would be Monday fajita, Tuesday would be chicken korma, Thursday would be a Rogan Josh, for example, all these British curries. And we would rotate the sauces with the same protein source, and they would taste completely different because of the variations that you had. However, when you go down the route of sauces or gravy, if you call it that, it comes at a cost depending on how you make it. I'm just looking at some of the questions that we got there. So when you're looking at that, jarred stuff is the lazy last option. So for someone that I would do if I was like wanting a jarred variation, I would go to Lloyd Grossman or I'd go to Domino's or something like that. And instead of putting the whole jar in, I would use a tablespoon over the top once I've cooked everything. That would be the easiest way to do it. But yeah, it's still 100 calories on top. You can make anything taste great when you do any type of thing like that. And then the last thing is like most people accommodate bland food, but their vocabulary isn't the right thing. They're saying bland food, but what they mean is they haven't got the right texture. So texture's massive within Indian food, and it's where I learned how texture can be the best thing. If you look at like a pani puri, for example, crispy on the outside, soft in the middle with the potato, sweet with the tamarind sauce, and then it gives you this crispy, sweet spice variation, which then you then crave that whole texture together. So when you add in sweet, crunch, soft, spicy, that that doesn't take into consideration just bland food in general. Bland food is like sauce, seasoning, how it tastes, and what flavors it's getting. But most people associate blandness with not just food, with actually the texture that it's providing. You look at sev puri, or you look at any of the variations where chevro is on top. You look at pav bhaji, or you look at the belly, which is in the Kenyan variation of pav bhaji with just the extra chevro on top. Is that when you bite into these things, you get soft, crunch, spicy, sweet, soft again, and then you're having that bite in all in one go. So when you're looking at creating something like that, that becomes the most difficult element, is finding something that a meal that hits all of those spots. And sometimes that's quite hard if you are looking at being on a low calorie diet, especially if you're looking at wanting snacks throughout the day, wanting chai, wanting all of these variables that add calories to your day, and you might not be always following things accurately. It can become very, very difficult to follow something if, firstly, you don't know how to add these things the right way. So, for example, 30 grams of chevro is 200 calories. You can't just add chevro to every meal to get this crunch taste with every single flavor. Otherwise, you would have 600 calories for 3 meals across a day that's just added of just the crunch. So you have to find different ways to add crunch to your meal and your sweet to your meal. And what you do is you separate that out into meals. So instead of chasing all this bang of flavor in one go, you go and say, okay, I'm having a sweet meal before bed. I'm having my savory meal, my crunchy meal for breakfast. I'm having my lunch as my stodgy meal with the potatoes and the protein sauce and the seasoning. And then later, when I go to my evening stuff, I'll have my sweet and crunchy meal in the evening. That's the way that you can savor it the best way, because you can't just get everything always that you want. The Indian food has amazing qualities, but it also has hard qualities, which is that it fucking is high calorie when you have it in the dosages in the way that you want to have it. So there has to be some caveat to this, which is you can do your best to fulfill these properties, but you can't always get what you want. And that's a really important factor, is that most people who I work with, working with over 1,000 South Asian individuals, is that they want what they want, and they don't want to compromise on things that they think they should be able to have with no logical reason to explain it. So I want to be able to have crunch, sweet, savory in every meal. I want to be stuffed every time I eat. I want to have seconds with every meal. Well, these aren't things that you can have as a reality, but they can't. There has to be light and dark. There is good and bad. There is, sunrise, sunset. There is fucking, depressed and then overly happy. Like there are spectrums to everything, and both sit on both spectrums. If you want all these things, you have to do a lot of other things to get them back. And it's finding a balance between not expecting something that is unrealistic, which is having this mouth sensation every time you eat, or what we call a mouthgasm. You can't always have that when you're dieting, especially in the quantities that you want to have it as. And that's why, seeing my videos, you're seeing the podcast, you're seeing my YouTube, you're seeing our coaching, is that we teach people how to have things like pani puri, pav bhaji. We teach you how to do that. But you can't also then have 3 other meals in the daytime that are going to be a taste sensation that, don't you don't have to change anything for. You have to be malleable and adaptable, and think about that you can't always get what you want. And once you start with the idea that you're not going to always get what you want, dieting becomes a better place. It doesn't become restrictive. It doesn't become the negative thing. It becomes reality. And, working with the community, is that their warped opinions of food make it hard to have a conversation about what is right and wrong with food when emotion gets in the way. Like I said at the beginning, food is emotional. For the Indian community, South Asian community, it is a God-given right to taste amazing, have loads of food, and it's always been brought up like that. But you can't have amazing goals, amazing fat loss goals. You can't get in amazing shape without there being a compromise. So anyway, back to bland food. So you can't expect that crunchy, sweet, and savory will always be in one taste, a mouthful, or one meal because of the calories that they provide, the calories that it incorporates to have these things. So separating them out into meals are really important. So having a sweet meal in the evening, such as, even some additions or changes of ingredients can matter the most. So for example, if I'm looking for a crunch, changing my crunch of a biscuit for a crunch of a rice cake can be the difference of having half the calories, or having one cracker with some cheese, or two crackers instead of having a full box. These things will get you your fix, but not in the way that it compromises your results. So what I would do is, in that sweet meal, use things like frozen berries, use things like the small fun-sized chocolate bars that are 50 to 100 calories. Use the celebrations tin, not because your mum's got the needles for sewing in them, but use the real things like the small Mars bars or the things like that to put over your sweet meal in the evening, like a yogurt bowl, a protein bar, things that will create volume and protein, but have that little taste on top. That can really help. Then with your main meals, you want to think about kind of stodge or variations of stodginess to keep you fuller of veggies, and get some things like crispy veggies, like oven roast your broccoli, and then put some salt over the top of it with balsamic vinegar. That's going to give you like a crunchy feeling when it comes to broccoli, and give you the sensation of crunch that you want to have. You just can't get it with deep fried cassava chips or deep fried mogo. You have to get it with other things whilst you're going through this dieting journey to get the most out of it, so you're not left hungry. Most people who chased food gasms or mouth gasms end up hungry, cheating on their diet, and not sticking to something because they said that they don't have any motivation or willpower. But it's not. It's just their expectations of giving up stuff. They think they should have everything without giving them up, without giving anything up. And it's a cold realization that you get nothing for free. And if you don't put effort in and change things, you have to change it. You're not going to get nothing from this. So when we're looking at navigating the ingredients, is like, I know that within the community, people get very astute to, tasting the difference between a ghee-based meal, an olive oil-based meal, or a no ghee-based meal. And people in the family will also kick up a stink if they don't realize it's got enough ghee in or have too much. But the best example of this is going to be, if you add ghee to create this lightness to a meal, to this creamy texture to a meal, and you're tasting and craving that, then you're already saying, well, if I want that creamy texture, if I want that creamy taste with my eggs, with my curry, for example, my gravy, I'm adding 120 calories for 1 tablespoon, just so I can get that creamy texture and taste and sensation. Just for reference, when I was dieting, it's only now when I'm in my 30s that I've started using cooking oils to make my meals. Firstly, I'm not dieting. Two is that I feel like it's a large waste of calories when you look at what you get for it, and you can get a lot more from different things. So using a teaspoon of ghee will allow you to have 60 calories worth of ghee, and it'll add some creaminess to the meal, but it won't be something that's taking, for some people, 1/15th, 1/20th of their whole daily calorie intake to just have this creamy texture. You could put in 50 calories worth of cheese, and that will give you the same amount of texture and creaminess into eggs, for example, than it would do ghee, but it'd be half the calories. So you have to look at those variations too. Someone said, when you're looking at cooking oils, is that sunflower oil? No, like the element is that if you can get away with not cooking in any oil at all, you will be better off from a dieting perspective to save your calories. Think about your budgeting. Think about your financial budgeting and go, yes, I would love every single month to have a driver that drives me around every single day in my car, but it's not financially the best use of my money when I look at my salary overall. Some things are great to have as part of your salary, but sometimes they don't make sense at that moment in time. So I would look at, how do I get the most out of it? Let's say, for example, let me explain it this way. By using ghee, olive oil, sunflower oil, any oil at a tablespoon or more is 120 calories. So by utilizing a cooking oil, it's almost like you're spending double that you need on your phone contract just because you like the idea of having more data and more minutes than you have right now. And just because you like to have the idea of having 150 gig of data doesn't mean you actually use 150 gig of data, and you might only use 50. And when you're dieting and when you're looking at cutting your costs, because that's what dieting is, you're cutting how much you're spending and eating, which is the same thing. You're looking at cutting down each variable. So you're looking to go from a contract of £100 a month or $100 a month down to the most cost effective variation, $30 a month. So you can save those $70 to put into other things like investing, saving, treating yourself to a nice gift or two, and getting the most out of life when you do it. So it's about looking at, is this a useful use of my calories? And within the community, we haven't seen people value their calories like they're budgeting. If, I've spent enough time around good use, and obviously the stories of Gujarat is loving to budget, they love to save, and they love a discount. Is that if we treated our calories the same way the good Jews treated their budgeting, we would all be in very, very good shape. We'd all be really treating the calories in the right way. We'd be looking at things stringently and how things go, and you'd be able to actually get a lot more for the calories that you eat because you're not rashly utilizing your budget. So I think for me, when you're looking at oils, seasonings, sauces, you're looking at even condiments, for example, like tomato ketchup, Nando's sauce, mayonnaise, yogurt on the side of your meal. No one's looking at those foods and thinking, I wonder how that's relating to my fat loss. I wonder how those things are changing how much I'm losing this week. And actually, they become the big things. Most people don't have an issue around dinner, lunch. They have an issue around what they add as additional to those dinners or what they add around those meals to get the calories sky high. Because as soon as you add in a latte, 200 calories, you add in 2 chais a day, that's another 200 to 300 calories. You add in a seasoning or a condiment at each meal, 100 calories per meal, and you're having lunch and dinner. You're already adding 800 calories of calories of food, and you haven't even eaten anything. You've drank some drinks like chai, and you've had a coffee, and you've had some seasoning on side of your meals for 800 calories for someone that could be 50% of their total day and have not even started eating yet. So I know this was turned in from a bland food / ingredients to making your meals better to actually talking about budgeting of calories, but it all exists. Nobody's thinking about these ingredients as things that are costing them results. And when I go and sit with clients, I go around their house and I see how they're eating. And I'm like, oh, no wonder we haven't seen the results that you want to see, because you're not seeing these as important factors that go into your day. You're not seeing that dollop of full fat yogurt on the side of your meal as anything issue. It's not that it's an issue. It's not that it's wrong per se or bad. It's that you haven't accounted for these variables. It's like doing your financial budgeting, but not accounting for your electric bill, your rent, or your petrol in the car. You just are going to spend more than you need because you're not accounting it. Is it okay to have 2 meals a day? So if you want to be hungry, a large amount of the day, I would definitely recommend eating 2 times a day. That means if you are going to eat it, you're going to have a fasting window of something like 12 hours and then another 8 hours. It doesn't make, just so you know, that eating more meals doesn't mean getting less fat loss. It's what you do in those meals and what you're budgeting calories wise to navigate them. But if you like 2 meals, sure. But if you're snacking between 2 meals or you're having coffees in between the 2 meals, you're not just having 2 meals. You're having multiple servings of food. And if we go away from meals, take away the word meals and put serving of calories. So if I have a coffee, serving of calorie. If I have a chocolate bar, serving of food. If I have a meal, it's a serving of food. And what you'll see is most people eat between 4 to 7 meals or intakes of calories across a day. You might think that little bite of your kid's food, for example, is nothing. Still has something. Yeah, most people don't tend to think about the ketchup. So yeah, I mean, absolutely. So ketchup is huge. I love ketchup in most of my meals when I'm eating at home. I think it's probably the lowest calorie variation that tastes the best, in my opinion. It's most bang for your buck. So I use the low sugar, ketchup variation. And I don't even count it within my food because I have it in all of my meals. So it means that I just cover, a little dollop on the side, and then I just, have that in every single meal, and I cater for that across the rest of the day. And ketchup is awesome. And then if you add ketchup in with chili, you get a chili ketchup, which is actually fucking great. And it goes with everything. So it's absolutely perfect. And it's a great condiment to utilize in most things. So after you've looked at this and you've looked at all of the bland food, the ingredients, You looked at the seasonings, the gravies that you can make on your own, the differences between sweet meals and savory meals, and not trying to get crunch, sweet, savory in every meal like a pani puri or a pav bhaji, whichever on top. You have to start separating things and looking at this as a total day thing. But hopefully, this has been a useful insight into a small podcast around how the challenges of bland food is a massive thing within the community. We know that the expectations of food is to taste great. It is to have this moment with family that is sharing love and caring, and it's meant to be joyous and it's rich and it's flavorsome and it's awesome, and we pride ourselves on these things. But that doesn't mean it's also conducive for the results that you want to get. And actually looking at these as an expectation will only hurt your fat loss or your ability to maintain. Because if you feel it's your God-given right to not change the food you're eating, or it's a God-given right to not change the ingredients that you're eating, you will always continue to overconsume based on what you need, and you'll always not get results because of doing that. You'll always never be able to control your calories, and you'll always overconsume because you're emotional with the food that you have, because you want to feel full, or you want to, always have a 10 out of 10 meal. The amount of times I've dieted and had a 3 out of 10 meal because I couldn't be asked to cook is so more. But why? Because 3 out of 10 meals normally take less time to cook. They make you, it gets the job done, and then it doesn't make you want something afterwards as well. So the last topic when it comes to bland food is, I've been around enough in the South Asian community now to know that guys who've been, at home, since they were 0 and now they're 25, 30, they don't know how to cook anything decent, and ladies, if your mum's been looking after you, if your auntie's been looking after you, then wow, you're going to have not that great cooking skills. So therefore, when you try and make these dishes, or you try and make these single ingredient foods, the chicken thighs with this, that, and the other, you're going to make an absolute stodgy mess out of these foods. And actually cooking and learning how to cook the easiest way becomes an essence of this bland food versus non-bland food. Because once you've got your seasoning, once you've got the variations of herbs and spices that you're using, the goal is just not to burn the food and make it dry. That's kind of what we want to do, right? And the easiest way to do that is to grab yourself a air fryer. Grab yourself something that basically means that you can never fuck things up. Like, you can't fuck a meal up in the air fryer, because all you got to do is click it on for 10 minutes once you put your herbs and seasonings on whatever you're making, and let that bitch run. Let that go. And it will come out, and it'll be tasty, and it'll be fresh, and it'll be, moist. And therefore, you'll have this ability to kind of make a tasty meal. But most people, when they're starting out cooking, if you've been at home living there for 30 years and then you've moved in with your missus, or you finally got a house and a little bachelor pad somewhere, you are going to suck at cooking. But it's, cooking and bland food go hand in hand. If you crap at cooking, you crap at the culinary design of foods and herbs and spices, you'll suck for a while. But the process of you getting better is your own autonomy on your meals. If you're a guy and you're dating in your 30s, get on the cooking game. You'd be able to whip up a dinner for a cheeky sort when you're going on the dating scene is going to be absolutely fantastic, to be able to impress them and to obviously serve yourself too. So get that air fryer. Start with shit cooking and get better with it, and just pick 5 to 10 different dishes that you master, that you get really good, and then you actually then move forwards in your culinary design to a point where you are proficiently making meals that you enjoy, that you taste and you like, and that you want to eat again, because that's sustainability. If you don't want to eat the food again, and you do dislike your day-to-day food, how easy will it be for you to go and get a takeaway? How easy will it be for you to just justify, oh, I don't like this, I don't want this again, let me just get this, let me just get that, let me just put a bit of this on top of it, all because you didn't actually learn the time to take the time to learn how to make food in a positive way. So that's my TED talk for today, guys. Hopefully you're enjoying these daily lives. I'm trying to get on these as much as possible in my little box at a co-working space. And if you enjoy this, please let me know. If you want specific advice or particularly other things to go through, then I will be more than happy to make podcasts or videos on particular topics, as long as they are fruitful, useful, and they can help in some way, shape, or form. But thank you very much. I'm going to close off the podcast.